It was a warm Thursday morning when Walter came to see me. He was 71, soft-spoken, with kind eyes that had seen a lot joy, grief, love, and lately, confusion. He sat across from me and said something I'll never forget. "Doc, I still love my wife. I still want to be close, but it feels like my body forgot how to show it." That quiet sentence carried so much weight not just for Walter, but for so many men I've met over the years. Not because they've lost desire, but because they've lost connection, not just with their partner, but with their own body. So today, I want to talk about something most men don't talk about, at least not out loud. Caring for your penis after 60. I know, the moment I say that, you might feel yourself tense up, or chuckle, or feel unsure whether to keep watching. But if you're still here, I'll say this. You are not strange for caring. You are not weak for wondering, and you are not alone. I'm Dr. Michael Harris, and for over 40 years I've walked beside men who just wanted to feel like themselves again, not just stronger, but seen even in the most vulnerable corners of their health. Your penis is not just a sexual organ. It's a barometer, a reflection of how your blood flows, how your hormones function, how your nervous system speaks, and sometimes how your heart feels. And when things shift, when arousal fades, when sensation dulls, when intimacy becomes confusing, it isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that your body is trying to talk to you. So today, let me walk beside you quietly through 5 things I've seen steal vitality from good men, often without them even knowing. Not to shame, not to preach, but to help you listen more kindly to your body and to what it still needs. Let's start here with something I call the myth of disuse. So many men, once past 60, quietly decide that they're done, whether it's because of a health scare, a shift in libido, or just the slow fading of touch over time. I've heard them say it doesn't matter anymore. But I'm here to tell you, it does. Because the body doesn't just forget when you stop using it. It begins to adapt to that stillness, and not in ways you want. You see, regular arousal, whether from partnered intimacy or self-pleasure, sends oxygen-rich blood through the erectile tissue. It's the body's way of keeping that tissue alive, flexible, responsive. When that stops for too long, the tissue stiffens, shrinks even. And I've had patients whisper to me, with real sorrow, "Doc, I think I'm getting smaller." They're not imagining it. They're witnessing the quiet changes of disuse. But here's the hopeful part. Just like a muscle responds to care, your intimate tissue responds to presence. And presence doesn't always mean performance. Sometimes it just means saying, "I still deserve connection." Which brings me to the second reflection, what I call the pressure trap. You know what breaks more men's confidence than anything else? One bad night. One moment where the body didn't rise to meet the mind. Maybe it was stress, maybe exhaustion, maybe fear. And suddenly, they carry that moment like a sentence. They pull away, not just from their partner, but from themselves. The next time, instead of intimacy, there's anxiety. Will it happen again? That question becomes a wall. It stops blood flow. It tightens the muscles. It deadens the senses. And even if the partner is kind, the man inside feels judged not by her, but by himself. But listen to me, please. You are not a machine. Your body isn't here to perform on command. Sometimes it falters. Sometimes it says, "Not now." And that is not failure. That is life. What matters is how you respond. Do you punish yourself? Or do you offer grace? Because healing, true healing, never begins with pressure. It begins with gentleness. The third reflection I want to share is about harm we don't realize we're doing. I call it the quiet damage of good intentions. I've had men come in with sore, reddened skin, irritation they couldn't explain, or numbness they were too embarrassed to mention. And when we talk, I find out they'd been using strong soaps, scrubbing dry with towels, or using odd methods they'd read about: online stretching, clamping, applying substances never meant for skin that delicate. Sometimes in search of cleanliness, sometimes in search of size. but always in search of something they didn't feel they already had. Here's the truth. The skin around the penis, especially under the foreskin, is some of the most sensitive tissue in the entire body. It needs softness, not scrubbing, warm water, not harsh chemicals. Pat dry, not rub rough. You wouldn't scrape the skin around your eyes, would you? Why would you do it there? And to the men who feel they're not enough and try to fix that with devices or pressure or manipulation, please hear me. You are enough. More often than not, what needs to grow isn't your body, it's your understanding of how worthy you already are. If this is speaking to you even just a little, let me know. You can type 1 in the comments. If you're not sure, type 0. Either way, thank you for staying with me. Let's keep going, because what comes next might be the most important part of all. I want to tell you about a man I once knew, Charles. He came in for something routine, nothing alarming, just a yearly checkup. But when we sat down to talk, he paused and said, almost in a whisper, "Doc, I feel fine, but I don't feel alive. Not in the ways that matter." I asked him what he meant. He said, "I used to wake up with a kind of warmth, a sense of presence. Now, it's like I've gone cold." Charles wasn't talking about temperature. He was talking about something far deeper. Which brings me to the next quiet thief of male vitality, the heat we ignore. The male body, especially after 60, becomes more sensitive to things we once brushed off. One of those things is heat. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of heat you feel on your skin. I'm talking about the subtle, sustained heat that creeps in unnoticed. A laptop resting on your thighs, a hot car seat, hours of sitting in a leather chair, or even long sessions in a sauna. Your testicles, by design, are meant to hang outside your body for a reason. They need to stay cooler just a few degrees to maintain testosterone production and support healthy sperm. But when they're trapped in a warm environment, day after day, the change is slow, invisible even. But over time, testosterone starts to dip. Energy wanes. Desire feels more like memory than instinct. I've seen lab tests where men looked healthy until we talked, and suddenly, it all made sense. The solution isn't to fear heat, it's to understand it. Let the air flow. Shift your position. Put that laptop on a desk instead of your lap. Take small steps to cool the system. You don't need ice packs or complicated gadgets. You just need awareness. And Charles? He made a few small changes. 6 months later, he told me, "It's like something inside me is waking up again." And that's what this is really about, not changing who you are, but helping you feel like you again. Now I want to talk about something deeply misunderstood and often left unspoken. Self-pleasure. Some men avoid the topic altogether. Others turn to it in secret, not out of desire, but out of loneliness or stress. And while masturbation itself isn't harmful, in fact, it can be healthy. How you do it matters. The penis isn't a lever. It's not a release valve. It's a living, feeling part of you that responds not just to touch, but to emotion, thought, and energy. When you condition it to expect tight, rushed, intense stimulation, you train your brain and your body to need that. So when you're finally with a partner, softer, slower, more natural sensations may feel dull or unresponsive. I've heard men say, "Doc, I can't feel anything during real sex anymore." And when we trace it back, it often starts with disconnected self-pleasure done under stress, secrecy, or shame. So let me offer this instead. If you choose to touch yourself, do it with care, with breath, with presence. As an act of self-kindness, not escape, not to chase a rush, but to remind your body gently that it is still worthy of love. Even when you're alone, because how you treat yourself when no one's watching shapes how you show up when someone is. And that brings me to one of the deepest wounds I've seen in men after 60. Performance pressure. Not from anyone else, but from within. I've had men, strong, thoughtful, loyal men, fall into depression after just one difficult night. One time their body didn't respond. They didn't tell their partner, didn't tell their doctor. They just carried it quietly, like a secret failure. The next time they tried to connect, they weren't present. They were anxious. And the body felt it. It tightened. It hesitated. It pulled back. And the cycle continued. But here's what I want you to know. You are allowed to falter. The penis is not a machine. It can be tired. It can be affected by stress, by fear, by grief, even joy. It responds to your emotional state, not just to biology. And if you carry the belief that you must always be ready, always be firm, always be in control, you'll set yourself up for suffering. What the body needs most, especially now, is not more demand. It's more compassion. Let yourself stumble. Let yourself soften. Because healing often begins the moment we stop trying so hard to be perfect. The body can only recover when the mind allows it. Which leads us to one of the most silent dangers I've seen in men over 60. Avoidance. I had a patient, Gregory, who noticed a sore on his penis. Just a small spot. No pain. Just odd. He waited. Told himself it was nothing. Then came drops of blood during urination. Still, he kept it to himself. Didn't want to worry his wife. Didn't want to feel embarrassed. By the time he saw me, it was almost too late. The damage had spread deeper than we could fix. Now, I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing it because I've seen this pattern too many times. A strange bump. A shift in color. A bit of burning. And silence. But silence, when it comes to your health, isn't strength. It's a risk. If something feels off, speak up. Tell your doctor. Not because it's always serious, but because if it ever is, early is everything. Sometimes, a sentence as simple as, "I need this checked," can be the beginning of real healing. And isn't that what you deserve? To be cared for, to be safe, to feel confident again. We still have more to talk about, but if this has been helpful so far, if it's helped you feel seen, maybe consider subscribing. I'll be right here quietly when you're ready for more. I want to pause here and ask you something simple. When was the last time you looked at your body, truly looked and said, "I care for you"? Not because you're trying to fix something, not because you're chasing a number or a memory, but because you still matter. I ask this not as a doctor, but as a man who spent 4 decades listening. And what I've come to understand deeply is that most men don't stop caring. They just stop believing their care is allowed. Especially when it comes to sexual health. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that our bodies are only worth attention when they perform. And when they falter, we go quiet. We withdraw. We make excuses. We tell ourselves, it's just age. But let me tell you something that may surprise you. It's not just aging. It's disconnection. And disconnection, unlike time, can be reversed. Not with pills, not with pressure, but with presence, a moment of awareness, a morning of gentler choices, a decision not to return to who you were at 30, but to be more fully who you are today. Let's come back to that last point from earlier, the idea that your penis is not just for pleasure, but for presence. I've had men say, "Doc, I haven't had sex in years. Is that bad?" And my answer is always the same. It's not about the act. It's about whether you've abandoned that part of yourself completely. When a man stops touching himself, not just physically, but emotionally, he stops reminding his body that it's still part of him. The brain learns from use. So, when we go months, years, without intimacy, with a partner or alone, the brain begins to redirect attention. Blood flow slows. Tissue loses its flexibility. Sensitivity dulls. And yes, shrinkage is real, not because something is broken, but because it's no longer being nourished by blood, by stimulation, by touch. That doesn't mean you failed. It means your body is waiting for you to return. And when you do gently, patiently, without pressure, it often responds with gratitude. But here's something many men never realize. You don't have to go it alone. Your partner, if you have one, may be feeling distant too. They may be waiting for you to speak first, to open the door, not just to touch, but to trust. And if you don't have a partner, that doesn't mean your sexuality stops. Connection starts with you, with how you care for yourself when no one is watching. That care might be a warm bath instead of a rush shower. It might be turning off the news and turning on music. It might be choosing comfort over performance. You don't have to be in the mood. You just have to be present. And if you're thinking, but what if I've gone too long? What if I've already lost too much? Then let me share one last story. A man named Leonard, 75, widowed, former woodworker, came to me after years of silence. He hadn't been intimate since his wife passed, not even with himself. He said, "Doc, it feels like that part of me just died." I nodded and asked him one question. "Do you still want to feel?" He sat still for a moment, then said, "More than anything." That's where we began. Not with prescriptions, not with pressure, but with permission. Permission to start again, to sit with his own body without shame, to touch, to feel, to cry if needed. 3 months later, he came back. He wasn't having wild adventures, but he was sleeping better, smiling more, feeling. He said, "It's not about sex. It's about being alive again." And that, my friend, is the real message I want to leave with you. You are not just a body. You are a man who has lived, loved, lost, endured. And you still deserve to feel. You still deserve joy. You still deserve connection. If your penis has changed, and it likely has, that doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's asking for your attention. Not judgment, not panic. Just attention. Look at it the way you'd look at an old friend who's been neglected. Not with guilt, but with a quiet, steady hand. And start small. Drink more water. Walk in the sunlight. Take breaks from sitting too long. Stop punishing your body for getting older. And most importantly, talk. To your partner, to your doctor, to yourself. Say the things you've been holding in. Because here's what I believe. Real healing doesn't begin with medicine. It begins with honesty. And honesty begins when you're tired of pretending that everything's fine. You're not here by accident. You're here because some part of you still hopes, still longs, still believes there's more ahead. And you're right. There is. Not some fantasy of youth, but the real grounded possibility of presence, of intimacy, of being seen and seeing yourself fully again. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are not done. You are still here. And that means something. If this message meant something to you, perhaps you'll share it. Not because it's perfect, but because someone else, someone quiet, someone unsure might need to hear a voice like this. And maybe yours is the voice that leads them there. So take a breath. Take a step. Take your time. And if you need someone to walk with you, I'll be right here. As always, if something here touched your heart, perhaps share it quietly, the way it was once shared with you.